So I talk a lot about how I like to watch all my anime subtitled, and a lot of people tell me things like, well, it's difficult for me to watch the subs and also pay attention to and also pay attention to what's going on in the actual visuals and show at the same time. And so they're like, you know, I don't want to have to read, I don't want to have to try to process the language. And I'm sympathetic to that, because even though I obviously don't have that problem anymore, it's not as though I didn't ever. You know, I started watching anime when I was a kid. Obviously, I mostly watched dubs on Toonami and Adult Swim. And, you know, when my cousin and I started buying anime DVDs, it was kind of like a coin toss between whether we'd watch the dub or sub. Really just depended on the show and what mood he was in, I guess. But, like, he usually was the one who bought them. But, like, when I started watching anime online, a lot of it was not dubbed. So it wasn't like there was a choice in the matter. And at first, I really didn't, like, hear the Japanese when I would watch anime. Like, I wrote a post about this way the fuck back, where I was talking about how when I would read subtitles, I would just hear my own voice in my head reading the sentences. So, like, I didn't really have a good perception of the Japanese voices. So, if anything, dubs were usually the better option. But as time went on, I kept trying to watch dubs again, but I just couldn't get past A, how bad most of the acting is, B, how bad most of the translations are, and C, just generally liking the Japanese voices better. I distinctly remember when Haruhi came out, because I had already seen Haruhi in Japanese, because, you know, it wasn't available dubbed, and then when it came out on DVD, I was showing it to my younger brothers, and I figured they wouldn't be able to read the subtitles, so we watched it dubbed. And I just remember having this feeling like, this doesn't feel right. Like, it feels like the tone of the show is somehow different, that, like, the characters just don't come off the same way, they don't really have the same personalities. It was just different enough that it felt like I was watching a different show. And that's really, like, the last time I remember, like, choosing to watch a dub. And then my last real dub experience after that was when watching with my ex-girlfriend, who was a dub person, and we watched Clannad.
Disgusting.
And I kept, all throughout the show, pointing out moments where the English dialogue just didn't make sense. Because there were a lot of, like, weird Japanese puns or, you know, wordplay that just didn't translate into English, and they didn't try. It just made no sense. Most viewers just gloss over that stuff. They don't think about it. They just think anime's weird and has dumb, goofy shit in it. But, it's not that weird and not that dumb and goofy. The shit makes some sense, usually. So, how I bridged this gap is simply by watching enough anime subbed. Like, yeah, at first I heard my own voice. At first I was reading too slow. At first it was distracting from the images on screen. And then that all went away because I watched a lot of anime. I was watching it all the time. I was marathoning shows constantly in Japanese. And over time, first of all, the Japanese language, the spoken Japanese language, particularly in anime, is extremely simplistic. There's like 100 words that are in every anime. If you watch enough anime, you don't need to study Japanese to be able to understand the Japanese that is used in anime, because it's very dumbed down. Unless it's like a show for older people. Like most, there was a post by my friend Bakuraptor who studied Japanese and moved to Japan, where he was talking about his experiences trying to start watching anime raw, and he was saying any character under 18 is extremely easy to understand, but it's like as soon as they become an adult, they suddenly have a whole, like, they just become a human dictionary. So, you know, I understand that, like, it can be difficult to understand Japanese, but if you're just watching anime and just learning anime Japanese, it's pretty easy to start picking up on things to the point where you don't need as much guidance from the subtitles. Because, like, I don't, like, read all the subtitles. I don't read it like a book. I glance down and, like, between hearing it and seeing it is an understanding born. But the more anime I watch, the easier it is because, and to the point where I'm often correcting the subtitles, either in my head or out loud, to what I think would make more sense, because of the meta context of hearing these words in anime over and over again, and thinking about why those words would be chosen. So, I value that a lot.
Are you done making your pizza?
Yeah.
Pop these bad boys in the oven.
And that's why I
Toaster oven.
put so much value on the Japanese voice acting, because like I care more about anime in a meta sense than I do about individual shows. That's just me personally. My way of my general way of consumption is that I care more about meta than I do about the shows themselves. And so the meta context of the Japanese language is very important to my overall enjoyment of shows. You know, hearing the same phrases over and over again, the different ways that they're used, and the different ways that the language is played with in different shows. You know, so to me, it's like if I'm watching something dubbed versus subbed, it is a different show. It is just flat out a different show. There's too much different meaning, too much different feel. Like, I don't consider them to be the same. And so when I talk about a show, and I know that everyone else is watching it dubbed, it's very strange. It's a weird disconnect I feel, because I know that you might interpret this show completely differently because you're really watching a different show, you know? And that's why I think it's so important to learn Japanese, especially if you consume anime because you care about it. You know, like I got a lot of people arguing things like, well, anime can be an artistic medium, but it's also an entertainment medium. I just want to be entertained. Fine, whatever. Like, nobody has to give a shit. Except for me, because it's my job. But, like, if you do give a shit, I encourage you, learn to watch anime subbed. It is not hard. You just have to do a lot of it. Eventually, the voices will start making more sense to you. You'll start recognizing voice actresses and stuff in different shows. You might get interested in that aspect of anime, which I care a lot about. You know, I track voice actresses' careers and shit like that, and that's a fun aspect of it for me. And it's hard to talk about on YouTube because not a lot of people watch subs. Most people watch dubs in the West, it seems. So it's not so easy to talk about voice actresses and shit, which, you know, is an important part of anime's meta in Japan, and that kind of meta informs the shows. Like, there's a lot of shows that are voice actor vehicles, you know, that don't have that context when they reach America. So, you know, I just think there's a lot of reasons to do this, to train yourself, and the reason I made this video is that I saw, you know, so many comments saying, like, I can't, like, enjoy the show as much if I watch it subbed. I understand, but, like, it's worth learning. It's worth practicing if you're going to be into this long term. Like, if you want to be into anime for a long time and you want to get the most out of the experience of being a fan of this medium and, you know, understanding the shows as they were intended to be understood, you know, getting more involved in the meta context of what's going on in anime, which is inherently a very metatextual medium. And again, you don't have to enjoy anime this way, but this is how I enjoy anime, and it's weird for me to talk to other people as though we are in the same thing when we're seeing such different versions of it. So just practice, watch lots of shows, eventually it will start to make sense, I promise.